Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Colin C back from the Crypto Boys, and do I have a great video for you today. I have been stuck without a phone in Mexico for the last 4 days. Had a lot of videos planned that I was going to do, kind of get after it. I've had a couple things that I wanted to do on the beach and all, so on and so forth, but zero service, couldn't really even connect to Wi-Fi, so really couldn't watch this amazing run unless I went to one gas station in one place that had some Wi-Fi that I could get a little bit more access frequently, which didn't really happen all that much. It was very difficult to do, but anyways, I'm back. I'm ready to go. I want to make this video, get things going, my thoughts on the market and where we are headed. Let's go. All right, guys. So I just want to get into the market, kind of where we're going, where we're headed, what I think is going to happen with Bitcoin and everything else, because I got so much to say. Didn't obviously have the chance to get as many videos and things as out. Joe was holding down the fort and did an amazing job. I went back and watched through most of the videos, almost all the videos now, and I just want to go a little bit further into depth with my thoughts on the market. As you know, I've been bullish since pretty much day one. Joe's been much more bearish than I have, but I think we're starting to turn and starting to make that, obviously, that bullish reversal or bullish to the upside that I've always thought was going to happen, and I'm going to show you more data on that right now. The first place I want to start here is Coinmarket. Why I think that's important is because I want you guys to see kind of where we're at. I'm going to refresh it and make sure, but it's at about 2.1, headed up to about 2.2 trillion. Obviously, looking at Bitcoin here, 47, just under 48,000. That is as bullish as can be. The next thing we're looking at, if we can kind of close out here on this daily or even weekly chart here eventually, we're going to be looking eventually at hopefully going to that 52K mark. If we can break above the 52K mark, I mean, it's almost guaranteed at some point in time we're going to be heading to new all-time highs. And I've called it since day one. I think we are still bullish. That doesn't mean that we can't crash hard and this can't be some sort of correction. But with the buying and the orders in you seeing right now and the adoption that's happening in front of you, and that's been happening since we really went in this downtrend since November, I don't see that likely to be happening. I just saw that as a correction, a 5-month correction, mind you, but I saw that as a pretty big correction, and I'm going to kind of go into a little bit further of why I think the way I've been thinking since we saw those all-time highs back in November and where we're going to now. The first thing I want to look at is Crypto Dan's Twitter. He does a great job at kind of explaining it and giving new metrics as to some data, but he says here many similarities between June and August last year and February and now regards to the Bitcoin price action. You guys know we have talked about this, last year's bull run from June to August. We've talked a ton. We've talked a lot about what happened back then in that, or I shouldn't say bull run, but kind of that bearish sentiment, that bearish time in the market before we had that upward swing. And really, we were saying the same thing between February and now, and Crypto Dan just puts it in such a good graph and an easy way to explain it. But as you can see, from this graph, we were in a very similar position back here as we will be going forward. And, he says here, with a long, extended negative funding regime, this rally has room to run, and it absolutely does. I couldn't agree more. The next chart I want to jump into that I think is worth it is Willy Woo. Willy Woo has some amazing charts as well. Another guy you should go follow on Twitter if you want to kind of keep up some Bitcoin charting and things like that and fundamentals. But Willy Woo says, yes, it's not perfect, but alpha available is probabilistic way that Bitcoin is still early, where info asymmetry is clearly available. Very few institutions deeply understand on-chain, and I agree with that completely. You still don't see the adoption that's going to be happening coming very, very soon and getting, back on the blockchain. And I'm learning more about it every day. This chart used no price. You guys know that Crypto Boys really don't give price predictions unless it's something we feel very confident about and something we are doing on our own. It's kind of like, back in the day when I said, hey, listen, I'm not selling any Cardano unless it's between $4 and $5. And I did not do that, and I will not do that, because that's how much I believe in the project. And then I might start taking a little bit of profits from there. But you have to do what's right for you. And this is what I like about Willy Woo. He gives you kind of the fundamentals, and you can make your decision. That's why I like this chart. It's showing you based off, on-chain metrics and some more fundamentals of what's happening to Bitcoin and when. So I do like this idea, and this is another guy just to follow, to kind of put just a little bit of more notches in your belt as far as where you think the market's headed and where you think we sit right now. All right, guys, the next thing I want to get into that I think is very important and something that I've been really looking at and tracking for really the last year, and definitely since we started our YouTube channel to going all crypto, almost to the day we started we switched from something different to now all in on 100% on crypto, is that we were pretty much in bearish times. We started at the beginning of December and kind of started to switch everything over to crypto, and it was as bearish as it could be. As you guys know, we just went through that. But obviously things are starting to change, and why I think it's so important of tracking these macro, functional places in the market is much more important than just looking at what's very small in the chart. And that's why I think TA is so great, and you can go so far with it, but you can only go so far. You have to zoom out. It has always kind of given me the idea of how I'm going to buy and when I'm going to buy. You can see that in the market when things are going to I just did it with Silo last week. I told you guys I made that my second largest holding, is that you can see over time, if you zoomed out, when you're going to get a big pump. We got a pump of like 50, 60, 70% in 4 days as soon as I told you guys I'm buying Silo. And as soon as we did, sold a little bit, got my money back out, going to get ready for some taxes, but I still have the majority of it in. It's still my second biggest holding. So there's ways to do that if you like to zoom out. Again, not financial advice. That's just what I'm looking at and how Joe and I look at the market. And I want to look at that in TradingView and Bitcoin. So let's jump right in. So as you can see in this market, we are still setting, and that's why I think it's so bullish, we are still setting higher lows and higher highs. I don't think we ran all the way up and we did all of this work to set, you set a 64K or so here and then a 68K over here. We're not setting that, and we're not doing all of this work. And in my opinion, that's such a bullish thing, is that usually your next correction is going to be a lower high, right? Usually you're thinking that this is not going to get to that 68K mark. You're thinking it's going to be below that 64K mark, which didn't happen. And then if you guys were to zoom in even a little bit more here on this chart, let's kind of try to bring that down just a second here. Okay, so if we're able to zoom in just a little bit more on this chart, you can see that we're still making even, higher lows. You can see going forward of where that's going and where that's happening. And I think that's important, as you see when we bottomed out here at this 33K mark, 32K mark, you can see how bullish that reversal was, that every time we hit around that 33K, 32K, it was immediately buying. And I think that was one of the most overlooked stats of the entire, last correction we had. Are we fully out of this correction? I don't know. It's looking pretty good. Don't get me wrong. And I've been calling it just a correction since day one. I'm going to keep calling it a correction. I think we've probably got a full-on reversal now. But what I am going to say is you very rarely see a bottom that's that sharp and that hard and that much buying pressure when it's going to be a bear market. Typically, you're going to see a little bit, you'll get a little bit of a pump, maybe from 33K to 38K to maybe even 40K, and then you're going to see that come right back down, because it's simply the orders are not on the books. The pressure is not there to pump this market back up, but not in this case. In this case, it was going back up almost immediately. Next, I'm going to erase this chart real quick. We're going to jump right back into it, because I do want to show you guys something else that I've been looking at really since we pretty much started, and that was the way we fell. If you guys have seen other, bear markets and other types of dips, you will see something that's more straight down in almost every way. Then you see a big capitulation down at the bottom, but you're going to see something that's much more sharp, right? So you're looking at this one here in 2018, something that's much more sharp is typically what you're going to see here. That's how you're going to look, in my opinion, at where, these bearish, really extreme bearish times are, and how long you're going to sit there, how long it's going to be to come back up, so on and so forth. Now, if I get that off there really quick and we go back over to where we're at today in this last run, is that you don't see that here. You almost see this as a nice kind of, just, I hate to say it, but steady correction. That's what I see here, and I've seen since, really the beginning of this correction, is that you see not that sharp drop off like we've seen in past. Does that mean anything right now? Not necessarily, but you can see that that's not typically the most bearish, sentiment. Typically, that's more bullish than anything else, and that's why I've always thought, if you zoom out, I'm not the greatest TradingView guy or TradingView guy in the whole world, but when you think about where we're going and where we can go just based off of what's happening in a macro sense, I mean, it looks pretty bullish to me, and it's looking obviously very bullish right now. A couple more things that I want to get into that I think is at least worth noting, in my opinion, and something that I'm looking at that I would like to at least bring to your guys' attention. I think it's important, at least, is still the mining data. I love looking at the mining data. I might go a little bit overboard with it, but that's because, you know, we've got a bunch of miners, but that's why I like to look at it, is that you can see the total hash rate is still going up. It's still been going up, you know, ever since this massive crash, which you know what happened, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to even go into it, but you can see that this has been steadily growing. So you know that people are not turning off their miners, even though realistically the total hash rate was still going up, even though the revenue was still really pretty much going down and it was kind of flatlining. Now, eventually you're going to see this revenue go up, in my opinion, but people are willing to wait. They don't care that their miners are costing them more and more to run, even with the higher energy expenditures, and with you not making the money, and anybody who's really making the money off of Bitcoin, they were, but they don't care. They just want more Bitcoin, and I think that is because some of the biggest and best places in the country are eventually going to be adopting where they're going. They're going to see, like you see Russia right now, that's, you know, potentially going to be buying some miners and going to start legalizing mining again. You're going to see these massive countries and, you know, people who really buy a lot of Bitcoin start to get more and more and more into mining, because they're going to want more Bitcoin and realize that's a great way to kind of hedge what they already have and what they're doing. It's very similar to when these countries really started to buy up a lot of gold. In my eyes, it's very similar to when these central banks started to really buy gold. So why would they buy gold? And I've got kind of an article here to show you about it, guys. I think it's kind of cool and important, but gold has been an essential component in the financial reserves for nations for centuries. It's appealing because there's no sign of diminishing, with central banks purchasing gold once again this year. Indeed, central banks now hold more than 35,000 metric tons of the metal, and about 1/5 of all the gold ever mined. Now think about that. Central banks alone, so they own 1/5 of the world's gold. That's not even including countries. That's not including people. That's not including anything out there. Think about what happens when Bitcoin, there's only 21 million Bitcoin that's ever going to be mined, starts getting even more massively adopted. Think about when these, you know, spot orders start coming in that actually get ordered on the exchanges, what that's going to do to the price. I mean, think about these people who are going to start buying, you know, these massive buys that aren't just, you know, OTC markets, but on the kind of spot order books. Think what that's going to do to the price. It's going to absolutely explode. And that's why Joe and I are so bullish on the space. That's why we think, you know, not having some sort of crypto is just not the greatest idea right now. You know, I mean, we think that, you know, eventually, very soon, you're seeing this change already happening, and you can see it's going to start flowing towards the Bitcoin, towards the cryptocurrency. Just think of where we went. Everything we do now is online. Everything we do now is digital. Why would our reserves not be in digital? Why would we have a bunch of bars, stored somewhere? Yeah, sure. That can be another entity of it. Absolutely. Why not? But everything is moving this way, and I feel like if you don't want to get on the train, you're just missing out. That doesn't mean that you can't have success. That doesn't mean that things aren't going to go great for you. That doesn't mean that your gold is worthless or you know, anything like that. That just means that I think you're missing out on something that's going to eventually be very, very big. The bottom line is, guys, we cannot tell you exactly where the market's going. We have no idea, and no one does, but we can show you the data that kind of backs up what we're saying. We can show you what we're doing with our money and our portfolios, and us as the crypto boys. You know, we love getting on here talking about all this stuff. We appreciate all you guys, you know, following us, but in the end, we truly just want you guys to make a ton of money, just like we would like to make a ton of money, but it's so early in the crypto space right now, and we have so far to go. We're still in our infancy stages, and there's still going to be so many bumps in the roads, and you're not going to know what's happening in a macro sense. But even if you think about what's going on right now with the war, with the, you know, the pandemic that happened, with all these cases in real world that should blow this market up, that it should never come back, it keeps coming back. There's something to be said about why does it keep getting down? Not to quote tub thumping too much, but it gets knocked down and it just gets up again. And that happens every single time. So eventually you're going to see a big run. And, you know, I don't really do price predictions, but if I had to do one, I see Bitcoin probably going between 110 and I'd say even 150, you know, thousand in 2022. I've said that before. Actually, my last prediction was like 86K, but I would even move that up now a little bit. Either way, I'm calling all-time highs in 2022. I've said it since the beginning. I'm going to keep saying it now. We could easily drop from now and go way back down and be back into bearish territory, but you know, of everything that I'm looking at and all these macro events going on that could be suppressing price, and now with this, you know, new breakout, I just think that we're still totally bullish, still in a bull market. I think, you know, the halving cycles and periods and stuff are something else to be talked about a different video. But overall, I'm really liking what we're seeing in the market. I think it's just been a long time coming, and I think the last 5 months were tough. But if you kept buying through, if you kept listening to good people, if you got into the projects you wanted to get into, you should be up right now in the money you just put in. Maybe not up overall yet, but you should definitely be way up in the money you've been putting in. You should be DCAing in. Don't just you know, toss all your money in. Don't do that. Listen to people you believe in, listen to people you trust, and good things are going to happen. All right, guys, as always, if you have questions or comments, throw them down below. We've got a bunch of great videos coming out. I am back and more than ready than ever to get after you know, some great videos and some projects we have coming out this week. But as always, guys, we appreciate you rocking with the fittest crypto channel on YouTube. I am out.